You might be getting rich right now and not even realize it. No big moment, no sudden feeling, no point where everything clicks and you finally say, I made it. Instead, it feels normal, sometimes even slow. You still think twice before spending. You still wonder if you're doing enough. And that's exactly why most people get this wrong. They're waiting for a feeling that never comes. But what if the real signs are already there? Just not the ones you've been told to look for. There's a pattern most people fall into, and they don't even realize it. I like to call it the invisible wealth effect. It's when you're actually making progress, but it doesn't feel like progress. Nothing changes overnight. No big signal. No moment where everything suddenly clicks. So your brain assumes nothing is happening. Hey, Ted here. I'm not a financial expert. I'm just someone who's spent enough time making money decisions to realize that the biggest changes usually feel pretty boring while they're happening. And that's where people get stuck. They start doing the right things, spending a little less, saving when they can, investing consistently. But because it feels so normal, they begin to doubt it. Then they look around. Someone upgrades their house. Someone buys a new car. Someone's always on vacation. And the question shows up. Am I falling behind? But what if that question is the trap? Because the people who look ahead are often the ones under the most pressure. And the ones who feel like nothing is changing are usually the ones building something real. You just can't see it yet. The first sign is simple, but it changes everything. There's a gap between what you earn and what you spend. Ethan makes $75,000 and spends about $55,000. That $20,000 gap doesn't look exciting, but it's the reason he can save, invest, and handle problems without stress. Ryan makes the same $75,000, but spends $80,000. On the surface, their lives don't look that different. But one is creating space. The other is slowly losing it. And here's the part most people miss. That gap doesn't feel like progress. There's no reward, no signal telling you you're doing well. So it's easy to ignore. Or worse, close it. But that gap is where everything starts. So ask yourself this. Are you building a gap or just keeping up? Because once that gap exists, something else begins to change. And it has nothing to do with how much you make. The second sign is even harder to see because it doesn't show up right away. You've stopped chasing quick wins and started thinking long-term. Ethan invests $500 a month. Nothing fancy. He doesn't check it constantly. When the market drops, he keeps going. After 20 years, that's about $120,000 invested, growing to roughly $350,000. Ryan moves differently. He's always switching. New ideas, new opportunities. But he never stays long enough for anything to build. After the same 20 years, he ends up with around $60,000. Same time. Very different result. And the reason is simple. Compounding doesn't reward effort. It rewards consistency. But in the beginning, it feels slow, almost invisible. That's why most people stop too early. So ask yourself this. Are you building something that needs time? Or are you constantly starting over? Because once you stop chasing fast results, something else changes. You stop reacting to money and start working with it. The third sign is something you don't show, but you feel. You have a financial buffer. Ethan keeps about $20,000 in savings. It's not there to grow fast. It's there to keep life stable. When something breaks, he fixes it. When something unexpected happens, he adjusts. No panic, no rush. Ryan has about $300. Every surprise turns into a problem. A repair becomes debt. A bad month becomes stress. And that pressure doesn't just affect his money. It affects every decision he makes. That's the real difference. It's not the amount. It's the reaction. When you don't have a buffer, everything feels urgent. And urgency leads to bad decisions. But when you have space, you think clearly. You choose better. So ask yourself this. If something went wrong this month, would you have time to think? Or would you be forced to react? Because once you stop operating in survival mode, something shifts. You don't just manage money anymore, you start controlling it. The fourth sign is one most people miss. Your income goes up, but your lifestyle doesn't follow it. Ethan moves from $60,000 to $80,000. But instead of upgrading everything, he keeps his spending around $48,000. That gap, about $32,000 a year, doesn't disappear. It builds. By 40, that turns into around $280,000. Ryan makes the same jump, but his rent goes from $1,400 to $2,200. He adds a car payment. His expenses rise until they match his income. By 40, he has about $35,000. And the dangerous part is, it feels like progress. Better place, better car, better life. But it's a leak. Not one big mistake. Just small upgrades that quietly cancel out your future. So here's the question. When your income increases, does your life improve, or just your lifestyle? Because when you stop upgrading automatically, something changes. You stop following the system and start choosing your direction. The fifth sign is subtle, but it changes how you move. You stop comparing, not because you don't see what others have. You still see it, but it stops pulling you. It's like standing on an escalator that never stops moving. At first, you don't notice it. You just keep stepping forward, trying to keep up. But no matter how fast you move, the pace keeps changing. That's what comparison does. It quietly shifts your standard. A bigger house becomes normal. A newer car becomes expected. And suddenly, what you already have feels smaller, even if nothing actually changed. Ethan steps off that escalator. He still sees everything, but it doesn't define his direction. He's not measuring his life against what he sees. He's measuring it against what he's building. Ryan stays on it, always adjusting, always catching up, but never arriving, because there's no end to it. So here's the question. Are you moving forward, or just moving with the crowd? Because once you step off that cycle, something else becomes clear. You stop reacting to what you see and start choosing what actually matters. The sixth sign doesn't show up in your bank account. It shows up in your mind. Money takes up less space, not because you have more of it, but because you've built systems. Ethan doesn't think about every dollar anymore. His savings move automatically. His investments happen in the background. His bills get paid without effort. Nothing complex, just consistent. It's like setting a plane on autopilot. You're still moving forward, but you're not constantly adjusting the controls. Ryan is the opposite. Everything is manual. Every expense needs attention. Every decision feels urgent. He's always checking, always adjusting, always thinking about money. And that's the real cost. Not just financial, but mental. Because when money needs your attention all the time, it becomes the center of your life. But when it runs in the background, you get your attention back. So ask yourself this. If you stopped thinking about your finances for a week, would everything still work? Because once money stops being a constant task, something else opens up. You finally have space to think about what actually matters. The seventh sign is when money stops being the goal, and time starts becoming the priority. Ethan pays $150 a month to have his place cleaned, not because he has to, but because it gives him back 3 hours. 3 hours he can use however he wants. At first that feels wrong, like you're spending money on something you could do yourself. But over time, the trade becomes clear. Money comes back. Time doesn't. Ryan sees it differently. He saves wherever he can, does everything himself. His schedule is full. His weekends are gone. And on paper, it looks efficient. But he's always tired. That's the trade most people miss. They protect their money, but slowly give up their time. Ethan flips that. He protects his time and lets money support it. So here's the question. What are you still doing that's costing you hours every week? Because once you start valuing time differently, something shifts. You stop filling your life and start shaping it. The eighth sign is the one that changes everything. You take ownership. Ethan makes $65,000 in a high-cost city. Same pressure, same reality as everyone else. But he doesn't focus on what's unfair. He focuses on what he can control. He shares an apartment, cuts unnecessary costs, stays consistent. And when people ask why he hasn't upgraded his life, he doesn't explain. He just says, not a priority right now. Ryan makes the same $65,000, but his energy goes into explaining why it's hard, why it's expensive, Why it's not the right time. 5 years later, Ethan has about $85,000 invested. Ryan has around $4,000. Same situation, different ownership. Because the shift isn't external, it's internal. You stop saying, I can't afford it, and start saying, I'm choosing not to. And that changes everything. So here's the real question. Are you waiting for better conditions? Or are you building with what you have? Because once you take ownership, all the other signs connect, and they start working together. If you look at all of this together, the difference was never obvious. Same income, same timeline, but one built quietly. The other reacted constantly, and over time, that turned into $280,000 versus $35,000. $85,000 versus $4,000. Not because of one big decision, but because of small ones, repeated long enough to matter. That's why this feels invisible, because while it's happening, it just feels normal. So if you've seen even one of these signs in your life, you're not behind. You're already on the path, and the only thing that matters now is simple. Will you keep going, even when it doesn't feel like anything is changing? Thank you, and see you next time.